Bonjour, bonsoir, dear friends, and welcome. Bienvenue to JCB Live. A unique happy hour because it's going to be an artistic one. We're going to be with a great friend who is an incredible talent in the world of painting. She does one of the most amazing portraits of all time. Why? Because she does the portrait of your best friend. Yuma's best friends in the world has always been on four legs, and they do woof woof. And they are my best friend because one of them is called Frenchie. And she succeeds to animate them throughout the history of time. Or as you wish. She's been formally trained in Philadelphia. She'll tell us all about her fabulous training and history. She's a classical painter, an amazing painter, and she started an idea which is old world pet portrait. I had the pleasure to meet Carol Lou, thanks to a great friend of ours, Josh Green, that you've seen on the show, who is an amazing wine journalist. And luckily, many years ago we met, and it was passion at first sight. Carol has developed many of the most amazing Frenchy portraits, as Napoleon, as Benjamin Franklin, as George Washington. She is the one. So, dear friends, after the show, you can get in touch with Carol as well. Ask her to do the portrait of your favorite friend because she does it amazingly well, very fast, and with anything in your mind. So, dear friends, I'm very pleased to introduce you the talented, the charismatic Carol Lou! Woohoo! Did you see that, Carol?
Yes, I did. I have my
The
own.
bubble came out of my finger. Cheers.
Cheers to you.
It's great to have a little bit of JCB 69 French bubbles with you. Santé to a new year.
To a new year.
Ooh, I like that sound, Carol. Can you do that again?
Very nice. Very nice. If I was a cat, I would be purring.
That's right. So I know, do you need bubbles to be inspired when you're in front of the canvas?
Bubbles? No, I don't need bubbles. No, animals inspire me, and historical portraiture inspires me.
And how, Carol, explain to all our friends as we welcome you on live tonight, how you got started with this amazing idea to literally analyze all portraits, historical figures, and apply it to your favorite pet.
Now, I think that it just blends a lot of my interests together. I love animals. I'm very interested in pets and helping animals too. I love history, and I really enjoyed art history when I took it in classes. And portraiture, historical portraiture, it's just beautiful, but we really don't get to enjoy it that much. I mean, people don't really have beautiful paintings of Marie Antoinette in their house. But if you blend that beautiful image and your favorite pet, then it has relevance to you, and it's a nice piece of art to have in your home.
Absolutely. So how did you fall yourself in love first with animals and maybe then art? Which one of the two started first?
It may have been around the same time. I just came across a picture of myself holding this little tiny kitten that I rescued when I was a teenager out of a drain pipe. And it was down in the ground, right on a ledge in a drain pipe, about to fall down forever. And I got a hanger and a stocking, and I put it down, and she came up, this little thing came up with one paw, her claws sticking to the stocking, and I bottle fed her and had her for a very long time. And I don't know, that rescue was really meaningful to me. And it occurs to me that companion animals, they really rely on us, and yet a lot of people don't take care of them like they should. So they need a little help in the world. And that means something to me. But at the same time, I was in high school, going to art class, really enjoying it. On my way to college to go to art, to art school there, but I never really ended up taking courses other than fine art. It just didn't interest me, so I really didn't know that I was going to be able to make a living doing fine art. But here I am, which is fortunate.
Which is amazing. So how did you discover, at a young age, you had this talent for portraits specifically?
I don't know that I had a talent for portraits specifically back then. I didn't really have a focus about what I was drawing, although in classes there were a lot of nude models. That was just a way to learn about, painting figures. But I never actually got into portraiture then. I did take art history classes, so I enjoyed, that. And only about 20 years ago did I put all this together.
And before you started to do portrait for animal, did you do portrait of people? Are you very much enjoying doing someone's face, someone's features, someone, analytical, facial expressions too?
It's a little odd to say, but after a while, I wasn't doing art at all. I went on with my life, did other things. I certainly wasn't making a living at art. I was a manager and, involved with different things in my life. And then I came back to art. But for probably a decade or two, I did no art at all.
Yeah, it's not easy to. And how did you succeed to coming back to it? Because, as you said, making a living from art is not simple. And
Yeah.
two, how did you really find that place where you said, wow, I can make a living by doing what I'm doing?
Yeah. I started trying to make a living before I knew I could make a living.
Yeah.
I was in a management job, and I like accomplishing things that way too, and I learned an awful lot through jobs like that. But I had reached a burnout phase with that job, and I left it with the idea that I would take some months off and figure out what I wanted to do. And I'm fortunate to have a husband, to have some savings, and I didn't have to go get a job right away. And I thought, well, let me try some of the things that I really love and see if I can do it. So art was one of them. And at the same time, I started a flower farm here because I love gardening as well. And so at first, for 5 years, I was working really hard because flower farming is not easy either to make a living at. And eventually I stopped doing that too because there's just, well, first of all, there's not much of a market here for flowers. But secondly, I happen to live 2,000 feet above sea level, which is higher than pretty much anywhere else around. So all the other flower growers here have flowers a lot sooner and a lot longer than I did. So it really wasn't a good match for me.
And explain to all our friends who are from all over the world where you are exactly right now.
Yeah. I live in the most beautiful town. It's Washington, Massachusetts. It's in western Massachusetts. It's a hill town, and it's very rural here. A lot of woods, a lot of state forests, nature conservancy land. It's got a lot of history to it. And back in the 1800s, there were probably twice as many people living here as there are now. So you see remnants of the history, cellar holes and so on when you're walking around. In most places you don't see the history because things are built up over it, but not here. Here you get to see it all. So I love it here. It's wonderful.
And so you were growing flowers in order to sell bouquets and
Yes.
flowers individually. What kind of flowers were you growing? This is fascinating.
Yeah, I grew sunflowers, zinnias, larkspur,
Yeah.
a lot of perennials, dahlias, some gladiolas, not too many.
All my favorites.
I can't remember all of them. I had about a half of an acre that I was growing here, and that was a lot of work. It kept me fit.
But it's great because you're all about composition and color as it is on
Yeah.
on the canvas.
That's right.
So It's funny, you mentioned portrait because I was watching recently the great movie documentary on Vigier Lebrun, the very famous 18th century French lady painter. And I was thinking of you over the weekend watching this great documentary because she discovered herself, she was 8 years old. And her father was a painter and she became, and he was his biggest supporter. And he noticed a great talent in her, and then she became the portraitist of the kings and queens.
Which was not typical at the time, for a woman to.
That's right.
Kind of status, or even to make a living as an artist in the first place. But a woman, that's really amazing.
That's right, and having access to the French court and doing it the way she did it. And it's interesting. I have a question for you to know if you do the same. What I learned from her, which I did not know, you see Marie Antoinette as a very casual white dress with a nice belt. And then you see Marie Antoinette with numerous amount of dresses and then many portraits in the French court with the same dress. And she said, I've mastered that dress. Everybody wants to be in a portrait with it. So she replicated the same dress. Have you found yourself doing the same thing? She was kind of a fashion trendsetter.
Yeah, I guess I have, sure, because a lot of times I'm working with clients and they might choose a historical portrait that I've done before. So I get to try it again. I've done, just in the past month, I've done 3 Mona Lisas. So I get to really dive deep into it and say, okay, one thing is I'm looking at reproductions of these paintings a lot of the, all the time, really. And so I don't always really know what the real colors are. So, it's probably much like somebody who speaks after reading a book and they know how to, they know what the word is, but they don't know how to say it. Well, I probably am painting things and I'm interpreting them in my own way, which is not bad. It's my painting after all.
Absolutely. It's yours. Well, I'd love for you to describe this JCB 69 with flowers. If you were to think about your beautiful cut flower garden, what would you, from the aroma to the taste, would it make you think of?
Well, I don't know. Godetia came to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Godetia is a beautiful flower. It has different, it looks a little bit like morning glories, the way it flares out. It's on a stem, very delicate. And light flower. So that's what came to mind.
Thank you.
Very good.
I like it a lot. Well, I'm going to serve now, and I would love for you to tell us about this label because I'm so excited about it. So, dear friends, for all of you to know, Carol has painted all the portrait of Frenchie. So, out of the blue, Carol, why don't you describe our first phone call, maybe 10 years ago now, wow, and how it all started, because I think it's such a fun story as I'm serving this wonderful white.
Wow. I'm not sure I remember that first phone call, but here's what everybody would recognize. You had a lot of ideas. You are an idea generator and the sky is the limit. So that's the thing I remember the most. You had all kinds of ideas, wine labels, maybe, this is when you were developing your Frenchie winery. And here is a winery that now invites dogs to join in. They're as welcome as people are. And I love that, of course. That was a brilliant idea from my standpoint.
Thank you.
Yeah. And
this was great because we called you and you were so excited about it. So, dear friends, if you haven't been to Raymond Vineyards, as you come in, you can actually have a little area for your dog and go and enjoy your tasting. Your dog is very safe. And we decided with Carol that we wanted every wine, or at least every wall of the mini dog kennel, if you wish, to be decorated from an historical perspective because we love history. And as you know, Carol, I told you the first story when I offered Frenchie to Gina, my lovely wife. I said to her, this is the best Frenchman of all you can have. He's on 4 legs and he follows you everywhere. And she was so attached with Frenchie, as we are today, that Frenchie, they always try to be bigger than they are,
Yeah.
like Napoleon. So if you do recall, the first portrait we did was Napoleon.
Yes, I do. Yeah, that one was so classic and perfect for Frenchie. I love that one a lot.
And explain the process when someone calls you, and people are going to email you after today on Woolworth Pet Portrait to probably order their favorite dog's portrait. And, they would tell you I have a French Bulldog as an example. And explain us the process from the moment you get contacted to how you work with your clients.
Yes. So they would call me. I'd want to know or actually they email me more often. I often don't even talk to folks, but they email me and I ask for a picture. It doesn't even have to be a good picture, just so that I can see the picture in my mind. What is the subject? I want to know if it's male or female, because that's relevant to the type of portrait it's going to be. And then I ask them if they have anything in mind, an era, a style, like if you fashion Rembrandt or John Singer Sargent is a wonderful portrait artist to use as an example. Anyway, if anything that they like, a lot of people want their pets to be royal in some way. So I get an idea, and then I send them a number of images to choose from. It doesn't have to be that. Maybe they won't like any of them, but usually they do. And they'll pick one. I'll tell them what I like best and why, and then they pick something. Then I do a mock-up of that. I don't always show the client that. I'll show you an example of that, though. Here's a mock-up of Frenchie.
I love it. Frenchie as the Mona Lisa. Is the Mona Lisa a man or a woman? Because I know there's still a debate.
Oh, I thought it was a woman. I don't know for sure. But anyway, I do a mock-up. That just tells me, yeah, this is going to work, or it's not going to work. And it's an easy way to move the head a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, change the angle a little so that I can work out all the details. Then if they like it, I'll do a sketch, and then I have to work out more details in the sketch. Sometimes, I'll put the paws in, or they're just details to work out. If they approve the sketch, then I start the painting, and the rest is, just the painting.
That's so exciting. So in terms of in your life, how was it, and I want to go back to the portrait, but how was it to really get started? A lot of our friends with us today are so inspired. Many, I'm sure, are artists, and they're thinking, how did she do it to move from the workplace, really, and more of an office, 8 to 5 job, so to speak, to really working for yourself and painting at your own hours and making a living as such? How was the process, and how did you decide just to jump and do it?
Yeah. Well, I jumped and did it, not knowing if it would work, but I just did a lot of reading and studying about, well, how do artists make a living? So I decided to go on three tracks really. One was to develop a body of work that I could try to get licensed, because then I would get royalties, and if people liked it, then maybe they'd want more work like that, and I would continue to get royalties. That was one. The other was, so I had to paint like crazy, to develop a body of work that would be, marketable. And one thing I will say is some artists will do different subjects, and my strategy has been to stick with one, because then I'm known for that. I mean, I could develop an interest in landscapes and go in that direction, but then pretty much all of my effort to develop this body of work and to be known for this would be gone. So as a professional, I've decided to stick with this. I think it has served me well. But so licensing was one. And then I wanted to be an artist that people would get commissions. I would get commissions from people of their pets. But I had to figure out a way that people were going to know about me. So then I decided it was early on in the website scene. I didn't have a website. I developed one, but then how do you get found? So I did craft shows, and I would hand out a lot of business cards. And of the paintings that I did, I created prints and I would sell them and I would hand out cards. And I would get work that way. I also went to some dog shows. That was interesting. But I got known. And one of the things that happened over time, this is what one of the good things about developing a body of work is, and I never thought of this, but people would commission a portrait of their pet. Okay, then they'd get another pet. Well, they had their old pet on the wall and they had a new pet. You can't leave that other pet out, so they would get another commission. And then that pet passed away and they'd get another pet and then they'd call me again. So they have walls of my work and so I have a lot of repeat customers. I hadn't expected that, but it's been wonderful that way.
And when you sketch, Carole, how do you start on the canvas? So you get an idea,
Yep.
as you just showed us with the Mona Lisa and Frenchie. And then you take your canvas. Do you do a pencil first rendering?
Yeah. It's very practical. It's not so artistic as it is practical. So what I do is so let's take this example of Frenchie. There's Frenchie as Mona Lisa. And
I love him, my baby, my boy.
And so what I do then is I enlarge it to the side. No, I don't do that yet. I have a light table. I put this on the light table. I get a piece of paper. I put it on top of it, and I outline it. So, and that's kind of important to get it exactly right because I'm trying to get it to look just like that dog. I can't really make mistakes, or it won't look like that dog. So I trace it. And then I fill it in, and so I can erase.
So it's a double-sided table. So you basically, tape it on one side, and you do an overlay. So you do the contour, like that.
Yes. And then I end up with. I'll show you this. Then I end up with this.
Wow! Woohoo! This is a little baby as Marie Antoinette.
No, it's Mona Lisa.
I know. I'm teasing you. Just want to make sure we know who she is. One Ligier Lebrun, the other one Leonardo da Vinci, right?
Yeah. So that's the next phase, the sketch. Now, when the sketch is approved, then I enlarge it to the size of the canvas.
Yes.
And then I get carbon paper and I trace it onto the canvas so that it's still, again, accurate. I don't do all the details. I just do it so that, okay, I know where the eyes are, I know their noses, this is where the head outline is, this is where the table starts, and so on. And then I go from there. And then I have both the sketch and the mock-up to go by. And I use that as my guide as I fill in and paint the portrait.
Very cool. So you basically really have a very methodical process where you really very precise. What about when we decide to do this? We did together this unbelievable celebration wine that we're going to be enjoying now. And as you could see, dear friends, this is obviously the friendship between France and the US. And you don't have any models to go from on this one. So did you just draw it yourself? Because I gave you the idea on the phone. I sketched something on a napkin. I sent you a picture, I remember. And then you did something beautiful. So tell us about that.
Yeah, actually, what I have to say is that I did find a historical image of two. It was probably done around the 1930s, maybe 20s. Two women standing in that pose, and I really loved the composition of it. And then I made up the rest. Now, the good thing about digital artwork is you can grab elements of one thing, put it there. So I probably did a very messy mock-up of lots of different things pasted together just to get where the things were, how far away the statue was from the figures, where's the flag, how do I do that? So I probably got a whole bunch of different images and sort of put them together almost like a collage to figure
Yes.
out the composition. And when I had the composition I liked, then I had to work out, okay, now these are dogs, they're not women, they're paws, not arms, there's all kinds of differences. And that's what an artist would do, is figure out how to make it work.
Well, I'm a big fan of it, and this is such a great label. People are loving it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the wines, because I know you love fresh, crisp, springy white wine, and I really believe this wine really represents both. It could be actually a blend of two countries. Maybe one time we should have it evolve as a blend of France and American wine, but this was more of a composition of the whites that are meant to be very fresh for the time of the year we're in, which is now coming in, spring.
Mm. It's very nice. It's very nice. I have to say that I'm very spoiled with wine. I really like this wine. I can tell you if I like it, if I don't like it. I don't have a big vocabulary for wines, but I'm so lucky because right down the road is Josh Green, and he provides us with the most wonderful wines, and he describes them, and he tells us where they're from, and he's my sommelier because he knows what I like. He would choose this wine for me.
We love him. And, for all of you, dear friends, many of you have seen him on the show, Josh Green, Wine and Spirits Magazine. Very charismatic, extremely talented, one of the best palate in the United States and in the world of wine. So I'm so glad, thanks to Josh, Carol and I, and all of us met. So this is a very unique treasure. What wine does brings people together. So Carol, who do you have behind you? I love that portrait.
This one over here?
Yes. So this is a beautiful Irish setter.
Yes, this is, I don't know how much you can see, but yeah, this is an Irish setter. Yes. It was done in the style of Anthony Van Dyck.
Yes.
And he was a wonderful painter. And he painted a lot of the royals in the House of Orange. And that was one of them. I've done others of his. They're just so elegant, and the costume is so beautiful. And, there's a lot of satin and lace. And so I really like to go by that. And when I choose my own portraits, like this was not a commission for anyone. And sometimes I will just paint and say, okay, I'm going to just paint something that I think will look beautiful. So I pick exactly the portrait I think will look beautiful and exactly the dog that I think will look good in it. That's an example of it.
And you have a passion for historical political figures as well, as we've done together with Frenchie.
Right. Now, who are you thinking of?
Who is your thing? Well, French Urson was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
What you've done on the coronation of Napoleon was incredible.
Washington was also quite impressive, right?
That was, and I really like what you've done with Franklin, and we had the little attachment of the kite on the top of the painting. So today I'm going to have a big ask for you, a new painting we're going to be doing.
What's that?
But how large can you go on your canvas?
I mean, I have done quite large, but I think 20 by 24 would be, a doable size, easy size.
Can you go much wider, like 2 meters wide on 2 meters?
I could. I could do that probably. What do you have in mind?
I'm going to tell you, and we'll let our friends stay with us for a moment. I'm going to tell you in a few minutes because it's a very exciting one.
Okay.
Now, Carol, why is it so important to you, animals in your life? Because we have so many great supporters of animals, and we do so much with charities to help them. Tell us first why it's important, and two, what charities are you involved with the animals at large?
I have this feeling, very strong. It's a very strong feeling inside that animals are equal to us. I mean, our brain power is different than theirs. We can achieve a lot more, but that doesn't mean that we're more important than animals are. And I think that that's a lost feeling in the world. They're useful to us. That's a lot of what people think. But I don't feel that way. I mean, they are useful to us, but I feel like they deserve the respect that we deserve, and the compassion and the love that we want for ourselves. So I like to. My charity work has to do with helping animals. There's so many causes that are important. I chose that one. Other people choose others, but that one's important to me. And my artwork does that too. I feel that if people look at animals in the important way that they look at people, which is how these portraits portray people,
Yes.
they feel that way a little bit more about them. And also, if they're companion animals, if they're doing this project with them, they'll adore them a little bit more. So I feel like my artwork is an extension of my that feeling that I have about animals and the volunteer work that I do. Now, the work that I do right now is with an organization called Animal Dreams. It's a small trap, neuter, return organization in the Berkshires. Trap, neuter, return is about feral cats. And for some time, I was involved with animal shelters. I actually was the chair of a board of an animal shelter for 6 years, and we helped a lot of animals that way, pets, rehoming pets
Yes.
and so on. But while I was doing that work, I saw that there was a population of animals that was not being helped very well. And what happens is people adopt cats or, whatever, they get cats. They don't fix them. They're inconvenient. They toss them out, and those cats have to live outside. They reproduce, and they reproduce feral cats, and those cats are never going to be pets. They're just trying to survive.
Yes.
With the help of people who are caretakers. So our organization works with caretakers who help them. We trap them, we get them fixed, we give them a vaccine, rabies vaccination, or parasite treatment, and we return them, and we help the caretakers with a food pantry to help feed those cats, because a lot of these cats are in areas that people are not wealthy, so it's hard for they're compassionate about feeding them, but they don't have the money to do it. So we're helping those cats.
And why do you think volunteering for animal is so important? And I know you kind of said it, but I would love for you to emphasize on it, because like you, we are bullish about animal. As you know, I was born and raised in France, and there's probably more animals as pets than human beings. And you can take your pet to the restaurant and have dinner with your pet. And we're very bullish about this companionship and really helping pets to be this amazing complementary being on this planet. So tell us why it's important, because often we say, okay, well, we're going to go on health, we're going to go on the environment, we're going to go on child hunger, which are all important, and we active in all, but why do they need help as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're at our mercy, really. They're here because we brought them here.
Yes.
But they don't, it's different than a wild animal. The wild animals, I care deeply about them too, but they have their own lives. But companion animals are here because of us. So they're at our mercy. And unfortunately, there are people who don't care well for them. And, they're kind of allowed to do that. So any help that other people can offer to offset that, I think, is important. And I kind of feel like there are people who, they're just struggling to survive. And, for them, volunteering would be a big stretch. If you're not struggling to survive and you have time, help somewhere, even if it's not animals, somewhere. I think it's important. And I have the most wonderful life here. I mean, I'm an artist. I live in a beautiful place. I have a garden. I mean, I have the best life. So it's only fair that I give back. It's
That's fantastic.
an obligation, I feel.
No, I'm with you so much, and thank you for doing it. Well, let's have a toast on the next wine, because the next wine, Carole, really represent all your wonderful work together. Because, dear friends, we have exclusively work with the famous Carol Lou. I shouldn't say work, played, because this has been really an amazing journey, because this next wine is a collage, as we call it in French, of course, a collage of all the wonderful work. As you could see, Marie Antoinette, Benjamin Franklin. You could see, obviously, Frenchy on his own with his decoration as Louis XIV, Louis XVI. Here we are. And this is Frenchy the master, Frenchy the king. And Carol did those. And this is really the culmination of your work, Carol, here.
That's right.
What does it make you feel? It's the first time today you see it as a new release for us, as a North Coast 2018 vintage, to see all your work, or most of your work, on one label.
I love it. I think it's really creative to make use of them that way, and it just it's wonderful. What a tribute to Frenchy.
That's right. He just knew. Well, cheers.
I know him. I feel like I knew Frenchy.
Well, you do. You do. As you describe the wine, I'd love for you to take your palette of colors, because I know you have a beautiful palette that you never rinse, right? Your tray of colors.
I should, but it's a mess.
Well, most of the talented painters never rinse it whatsoever. They keep reusing it, right? Paint stays.
Yeah, I guess so.
And you do oil painting, right?
Yes, oil paints.
So you want to show us your palette as you describe the wine?
Okay, here's the palette.
Ooh, I love it. So how are you organized in different families of colors?
It's so messy that this palette has not been organized. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll start with, let's see, where am I? I'm upside down. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll put white here, and white was here. I've used all the paint pretty much on this, so white was here, but I usually start with blues, then browns, then burnt sienna, then this is yellow ochre, and then the yellows, and then reds would go here. Greens sometimes fit with the yellows. This palette, I started it with a painting that did not have a lot of color, and so I didn't represent all the colors on here. And then it got so messy that I would just look for open space to mix colors, and it's just all over the place. There's no system to this palette.
Yeah, but this is great. I love a palette. So if you use your palette to describe the wine,
I would
give
say
us a few.
Alizarin Crimson, which is a beautiful, beautiful, deep purpley red. It's transparent, but
yes,
add layers, and so it's very bright. And but then you can deepen it by adding more layers of it, so it's complex too.
I love it. Thank you, the crimson. So, Carol, now a very exciting moment.
Oh boy.
It's going to be our next painting. So we've published a book that is called The Alchemy of the Senses. Within this fabulous book, it's all about the senses and more. In the middle of the book, we tell you, let's swallow life whole and toast the orgasmic, gastronomic odyssey. And we ask you, if it was your last supper, what would be the wine you would serve? What would be the food and the menu? And who would be your guests?
So are we painting the Last Supper?
Exactly, Carol. Yes.
What?
But
the
fun idea, I thought, could be very interesting as a change. The way we did it here is with all the historical figures I would love to have for my Last Supper. So you can see, you have Gina and I, my lovely wife, Salvatore Dali, Alexander McQueen, Lady Gaga, Thomas Jefferson, Martin Luther King, Federico Fellini. On the other side, Lafayette, Mother Teresa, Gandhi, Christopher Columbus, and of course, Walt Disney.
Be there, Gandhi?
Yes,
Yes.
the famous Gandhi. So, Carol, what about we both love arts? Frenchie loves color. What about if we were to do The Last Supper as a surrealist painting with all our favorite painters as the costume? Salvatore Dali, René Magritte, Duchamp, Man Ray, all the great surrealist painters as a surrealist painting, all with a Frenchy face. What do you think of that?
Wow, that's super creative.
It could be very cool. So there's two ways to go, and we're going to ask our friends in the chat to chime in. We could do surrealist, or we could do our favorite painters of all time. So for me, it would be Jérôme Bosch, Velázquez, Ligier Lebrun, Picasso, Dali, Magritte, and I'm going to save the last four for my imagination just to come shortly. But it could be a lot of fun as well to say we're doing a composition from the 15th century to today, or we pick an era, which my favorite is surrealism, but we don't have to do this. It could be. Or we do the best painter sculpture of all time. What do you think?
Wow.
We'll let our friends vote, but what would be your vote? Which one would you be? That's why I ask you 2 meters wide. This one is around 4 meters wide.
I should have written this down because there's.
Oh, I will summarize it for you. Don't worry.
So, I like the Last Supper idea. I like the painter idea. But I think that Frenchie represented in a different way in there, but not the faces, because if you take out the faces of the artists, you won't recognize the artist. If you put
That's right.
So I think it might be good to represent Frenchie in a different way in that painting, but have the artists. That's my first thought about it, but there's definitely more thinking that needs to be done on a masterpiece like this.
I love it. So, dear friends, as you can see, you witnessed a typical session between Carol and an idea. So we're going to keep brainstorming, and I bet you in a matter of months, because Carol is very fast, you're going to start to see something, and we'll make it appear once in a while on social media and show you maybe the evolution of the painting, and we'll make it, Carol, a wine label.
Yeah, I guess it's going to go all the way around that.
All the way around, a 360.
Yeah, fun.
So, Carol, what is, 2 more questions briefly. What is your dream now that you've achieved in your life a big part of your dream, which was to set up your own atelier, your own, wonderful painting studio? What is your next dream?
That's an interesting question because I feel like I am living my dream. I don't feel a need to achieve a new dream. Just waking that. If I can just wake up in the morning and see what is around me and what life is bringing me right now and appreciate that like the gift that it is, that's a dream. That's living a dream for me. So,
wow, wonderful.
I don't have a new one.
Well, it's so exciting to be able to, living your dream as you are. Fantastic to have achieved that ultimate moment. Now, Carol, our last moment together, big question for all our friends. In a few days, we're going to declare a new season, spring 2021. What is your big message, inspirational message to everybody out there listening to us, in whichever tangent you want to take it?
Inspirational message. Well, I feel like we've all been kind of holed in, and different ones of us have fared better than others in that. I've fared pretty well, but other people have not. But I feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, And if we can just hang in there, we're going to get relationships back again. You know, there's a lot of joy ahead of us. And so hang in there, really. If you're having trouble hanging in there, hang in there. It's coming.
I love it. Well, it's a great advice. We are hanging and we all going to learn how to paint more. We all going to learn how to reflect more. And we all going to become more creative, hopefully, in the world we live in. It's exciting. And you're such a great example. Carol, I really want to thank you, first and foremost, for our amazing collaboration over the last almost 10 years now. It's been so much fun. I know we have a few more paintings in the work, and now we have a big one.
Yes.
The Last Supper.
Yes.
So, Carol, cheers to you, to your success, to your inspiration.
Thank
and
you.
thank you for making Frenchie such an irresistible part and joy of everybody's table and all our wineries, and making him alive everywhere we go.
It's been my
To
pleasure.
you.